Hi, I'm Isaiah,
And I'm David Lee.
and today's podcast will discuss which virtue is most essential for attaining the good life based on Karen Swallow Prior's On Reading Well. David, what did you think about this book?
I think it was pretty interesting how it goes. It's not telling, I mean, obviously it is telling a story, but it's taking a lot of famous other books, like the Great Gatsby and a bunch of other books, and explains how each book displays a virtue as the main topic, like justice, diligence, chastity, prudence, humility, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think this book was I actually enjoyed reading it because I feel like I was actually learning something in a way, like learning how to live and apply things that I could apply to my life, and then how most of the books I read that were given as an example, I never thought of it that way. I didn't look deeper into the lesson. I was just reading the book, so I just thought that it was a good read, like learning virtues and stuff and how I could use them to live a life for God.
And I think it plays out into the achieving the good life, because you can't really have a good life without displaying goodness, how Jesus Christ have done it.
All right, just let me ask you, what do you think the good life is?
I think the good life is trying to not only make the good life for yourself, but try to spread it to others as much as you can. Of course, everyone has their limits and stuff, but if everyone just stays positive and tries to look on the brighter side of the future, maybe that could be a way to achieve the good life.
So do you think the good life is more linked with other people or God?
Both other people and God. Obviously, we're social creatures and we need other people to be around with. Like in Genesis, it said it's not good for man to be alone, and God created Eve for man, and so we can live life with other people for God, and with God, of course.
Yeah, I think for me it's more to do with God than with other people, because I feel like the good life is doing what God commands us to do and living a life through Him. And so that's why I think we need the virtues to do that. Because I don't know, I don't feel like we need the virtues to interact with other humans, but I feel like we need virtues to have a relationship with God and to have a consistent, ongoing relationship with Him.
Yeah, and towards the end of the book, it talks about humility and how that's mainly the kickstarter to achieve the other virtues. Without humility, you won't have any other justices. Not justices. I mean virtues, and also the opposite of humility is the kickstarter for sin.
Mm-hmm. All right, David Lee, what virtue did you think is most essential for the good life?
I thought justice would be the most essential for a good life.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Isaiah?
I picked diligence because I feel like you need it to obtain the other virtues. Could you give us a definition of justice?
I said justice is because it's the most important. It helps achieve the good life because it determines what is good and bad in the world.
Mm. For me, diligence from On Reading Well on page 178, I thought the best definition for diligence would be a steady, persistent effort. Or on page 180, when she says, whatever it is that you are doing, keep at it with care and attention, and then keep at it some more. What did the book say about justice?
The book said in page 79:5 that the nobility allows the wheels of injustice to roll rather literally right over the peasants when the villainous Marcus Saint Evermonde strikes and kills a child while speeding his carriage recklessly through town. And on page 80, the novel's vision exposes the truth that prolonged systematic injustice inevitably bears the bitter fruit of violence.
Do you think you could explain it more, like that first quote? I didn't really understand
The
what
first quote,
like your own personal, like,
my
what you
intuition.
think.
Okay, so prior to this quote I pulled up, is that there was a judge, I think, or like the king, who said, like the Marcus Saint Evermond, um, allowed his brother to get away scot-free from a horrendous crime that would be revealed towards the end of the chapter, that he did not do good relations with the, I don't know, wait, can you pause it? He did sexual assault to a woman and later brutally murdering her. And by that, it shows that the power and nobility, I'll take example from like the French Revolution. Only the nobility would have like all the respect from each other and have all the power to rule over the peasants, while they get literally nothing and be looked down upon by the few who are on top.
So, like, what is justice like? Is it like a respect thing, or?
No, I don't think it is a respect thing. It is trying to make sense of a world of morality, kind of, where there's the good, where people punish those who commit crimes, but of course fairly, because you don't really want to send a teenager to life in prison just because he stole like a candy bar or something. Like appropriate punishments, stuff like that. And the bad in the world.
So it has to do with like morals, kind of.
Yeah. And that social Darwinism, survival of the fittest, doesn't really achieve justice, because if you only elect those who are like strong, fit, well in the world, or like this, obviously fit, but simply would not work by itself. You need intelligent people and display who have good morality and try to help out others as well, and try to make sense of all the chaos that is unfolding. What is your take on diligence?
Diligence? I just thought it was the most important because in the Christian life, you need to like be able to persevere through like persecution and stuff like that. And I just think having diligence is also to like strive for something, like towards living for God. And that's like how it connects to the good life, because I would say you need diligence to get the other virtues, because you have to have that diligence to want to pursue it and like not give up and not get distracted. And in the Bible, like Proverbs 4:23, it says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. So when I hear like guard your heart, I feel like that's diligence, but I'm not too sure, because I feel like diligence is like not getting distracted. So not letting anything like get to your heart and like defending it from it, that's diligence. And so whatever you do, it flows from that. And so if you let anything else get to your heart, like without diligence, then that's going to affect how you live your life, which I don't think will lead to a good life.
Isn't diligence also like you think carefully about it and do the work well?
Can you repeat that for me? I didn't really get what you were saying.
It says to engage deeply and think carefully and persistence and appreciate the material given in front of you.
That might be definite. That probably is a definition, but what I understood from it was like just working hard at something and not getting distracted. But I didn't really look at it the way you did and like read it like that, because I compared it to the comparison the book gave was, I think it was The Pilgrim's Progress, and with like John Bunyan and how he had to go through like numerous amounts of trials, and how he had the diligence to continue to strive that life, even though he had like so many setbacks and so many challenges along the way. But he just decided to I guess lock in and just work hard towards it, and like he didn't get distracted from anything. So I think that's what diligence is.
I just remembered another thing. I think it's diligence. It might be something else. I might be completely wrong about this, but it's like finding the mean between like laziness and like perfectionism, stuff like that.
Laziness and like, oh yeah, I think I remember that. Like, not trying too hard to the
Not,
point where it's like being perfect. Is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
but not trying too hard to like be the best, but of course you have to be trying. You're just trying to find the middle ground between those.
Just not being lazy.
Yeah, not being lazy, but not overdoing it. You're just appreciating the material just right there, and just trying to read and trying to understand it simply.
Yeah, the way I thought of it was just diligence versus laziness, and like working hard versus not working at all. But I didn't think about like what working too hard looks like. What do you think working too hard looks like? Do you think that's a bad thing?
It could be not, because it definitely is in most cases, because let's say you have a job and you want to get, okay, wait, another example. If you wanted to get into a good college, let's say like Harvard or like MIT, you obviously need to work a lot to get like those grades in order to get accepted into those colleges. And in order to do that, you must like, all you're doing is just working on the material, like all your homeworks, mainly focusing on the grades. And if you do that, sure, by itself it might be fine, but you also have to factor in that you have a family. You have to hang out with like your friends, family, and to be mainly focusing on the grades, it distracts you from reality. And I guess that's why it's not diligent to be perfectionism.
Yeah, I get that. Is what you're trying to say like when it consumes your life?
Yeah, it consumes your life.
Yeah,
it distracts you.
Yeah, like when it becomes your number one priority, like just work and having like an extreme work ethic to the point where you have no time for anything else, especially like family and God and doing what God commands you. That has nothing to do with the good life because the good life is doing what God commands you. So when that like overcomes your life, that's when it becomes bad, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it overcomes your life. I can get that for diligence, honestly. And I like to point out that on the second quote, I said that it exposes the truth of the prolonged systematic injustice and readily bears a bitter fruit of violence. I want to bring an example from like the American Revolution here. Like Great Britain was imposing all these taxes, injustice, mainly just getting money from them just to repay their debts from the French and Indian War. And meanwhile, like veterans who served there in the 13 colonies didn't really receive much benefits at all. So Thomas Jefferson made the Declaration of Independence as like a peaceful departure. They just simply just like, hey, Great Britain, we just want to let you know that we do not wish to be part as Great Britain. We want to be independent on our own. However, Great Britain's response was sending military personnel there to control, and were being abusive and imposed. Like the tax stamp was like the what's it called? The push, the drive to cause the American Revolution, which results in violence as a revolutionary war. And this is not a history lesson, so you already know what most of the details are there. But that's the general basis of what I'm trying to say.
Are we talking about justice?
Yeah, justice.
Justice? Okay. Because I heard you talking about like how they had to have that strive and push.
Yeah.
So were you talking like kind of connecting diligence and justice?
I guess because I'm mainly focusing like the injustice, like the tax stamp. It was like the final nail in the coffin, kind of. I forgot the word. I know there's a word about it. I just forgot. But I guess it can be diligence in there as well.
So just remind me again, why did you think justice was most essential?
Most essential to differentiate between the good and the bad. Like, of course, diligence has its own polar opposite. There might be a word for that. I just forgot. Justice with injustice. Humility with, what's it called? Pride. Yeah. And all the other virtues like chastity, prudence.
So how do you think that connects with the good life, though, like living a life for God?
Living, you're trying to figure out all the details to do what's good in the world and to bring law and order that God set in place, like the Ten Commandments. However, diligence, I'm more leaning towards diligence now because from all the details that you have given.
Yeah.
Because it is also essential to finding the mean between the laziness and overworking yourself to get distracted in reality.
Yeah, to just bring up a point about why I think diligence is the most important, is this one article, it's called like the Table Talk? I don't know, but it's by Jason K. Allen. And one of the reasons he gives why diligence is so important is because it's essential to the Christian growth and how you need diligence to like discipline yourself and how like praying, like reading scripture, evangelism, they all require diligence because you need to have that you need to have that discipline to actually commit to it and actually like apply it to your life. So that's why I think it's like that's like the good life, like committing to God and doing what he tells us and being able to like spread his word and knowing what he tells us and actually doing it.
Mm-hmm. And from a point of like justice as well, that we cannot really achieve complete justice in the world since all humans are inherently sinful, with all the riots and like Iran stuff, like because over a girl's death, which was completely unfair, unjust, as well with El Salvador's old crime statistics, how it would be gangs before, but now the current president is trying to strive for justice by locking them all up and getting them what they deserve. Another piece of text I like to point out is like Lord of the Flies. I remember we read that in sophomore year in high school. I don't know if you remember much of it, but it was complete chaos there. They tried to bring order at first, with Jack with the conch stuff. They mainly use the conch as a keystone, like the ballot hammer, I guess.
Yeah.
And was it Jack? It might be Jack was the evil one. I don't know.
I don't remember much.
I don't remember much characters' names, but then there's this other boy who was like supposed to be representing, like, they're like the Boy Scouts. They're kind of the top of the class, right? However, they turn into this chaotic, anarchist style type leadership where they would just go on their own and kill and be like, they're more in family, and you could put diligence in here as well. They're more focused with like the stuff they have brought, and then that overcomes them. The pride overcomes them, and eventually leads to murder 2 people. So that's essentially like how the nobility can lead others into chaos. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, to look at it from another viewpoint, I could see why other virtues could be the most important. Like, for example, courage. Like, especially in a Christian perspective, from a Christian perspective and like a Christian lifestyle, you need to have courage to go out there and like do what God tells us to do, and being able to first face persecution and stuff like that, especially in our world today where Christianity isn't really supported by some people and how the world is falling even more sinful than the past. You need to have the courage to be able to stand out in a way and be able to argue against the views of the world today.
Yeah, and to differentiate between courage and bravery, bravery is mainly you're just showing off. You're not really doing it for your bigger goal. But courage, you're doing it because I'm taking another. I love bringing what if scenarios. Like, you wouldn't go jump off a cliff onto another one if there's no reason to do it. But because that's just brave. Might be stupid, but it's still brave. But if you, let's say a person needed help down there, so you jump that cliff just to help that person, that's courage. It takes courage to do something like that.
Yeah, but but I still think diligence is the most important because I think you need it to obtain the other virtues, including courage, because you need to, like, I feel like courage just doesn't come to you. You need to, like, always have it, and having that diligence to, like, not let other people faze you or what other people think, and not being afraid in a way. And so I think courage is important, but I think diligence just connects to more of the virtues and how you obtain them.
Yeah. And, like, chastity could go well with justice, but chastity is mainly you're holding your restraint, you're putting yourself in check, holding restraint because you know it's the right thing to do. And to make a counterpoint to diligence, even though I believe that diligence is one of the more important virtues than justice, I put it right here. It said diligence is good if you use it for good, but could it also be used for, like, malice purposes?
I see. So it depends on how you use the diligence and what kind of way.
Yeah, because what I took from it, from the research I did, was that it's mainly trying to look carefully and find the meaning together, but, like, what if you do that for, like, manipulating other people? But I now realize that if you're doing it to manipulate other people, your only goal is to manipulate, and you tune out all the other things that are happening around you, and you don't really know your place in reality.
Yeah. So when you're, like, set on the good life, that's when I think diligence is the most important. And that's, like, what I just argued, basically, that diligence is the most important to the good life because you need to, like, work hard to live a life for God, and in, like, hard situations, you got to be able to not be distracted.
Yeah. I put justice because the Lord called us to do good, and we should find the good and differentiate between good and evil.
Yeah. Yeah, but to wrap it up, all the virtues are important because God commands us to live a virtuous life, and we need that in order to spend eternity with Him. And so all virtues are important, and I feel like there's not one most important because I think all of them are very important to living the good life and are a necessity. But thank you for listening to Voices of Virtue, Diligence versus Justice, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
This episode has been a production of the Capistrano Valley Christian Schools Podcast Network. Capistrano Valley Christian Schools is a Christian JK-12 school in San Juan Capistrano, California. Be sure to check out, subscribe to, and leave a review of this show and the other shows on our network on your podcast player of choice. Doing so supports the school community in a multitude of ways. For more information about the CVCS Podcast Network or any of our other shows, check out cvcs.org or email podcasts@cvcs.org. On behalf of the whole network, this is Mr. Jasper saying thank you again for listening and stay tuned for more.